Hello and welcome to this EIFL's webinar on repository best practices. We have our dear colleague Lila with us today, who is a repository manager, and she will share how her day looks like as a repository manager, what she does, what kind of workflows she uses. Then my colleague Milica will follow up on the engagement part, how to keep repository users engaged there. And she will also talk about an interesting and free accessibility plugin that they integrated in the repositories and also OGS systems. And it could actually be added to any website. I will also share some experiences with collecting repository metrics, statistics. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat or Q&A, and I hope you'll have many questions. So without further ado, over to you, Ljiljana. Thank you.
Thank you, Iryna. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. I'm very happy that I can say a little bit about my everyday work as being a repository manager. I prepared a presentation that I named Being a Repository Manager, because when I discussed with Milica and Iryna what will be the topics of today's, when we discussed the topics of today's talk, I realized that actually they engaged the everyday work of a repository manager. So what it feels like to be a repository manager. First of all, let me introduce myself a little bit more. I am a repository manager at the Institute for Vegetable Crops. This is the repository I'm managing here in Serbia at the Institute. It works in the Space 5 version. I'm also managing another repository for Association of European Schools of Planning. That's an European association, and they work in the Space 7 at the moment, and soon they will turn to the Space 8. And I'm also part of a team for user support of the University of Belgrade Computer Center. And basically my work over there is to train other repository managers how to deal with their repository, how to manage their repositories. So today I will be speaking from my own experience and what parts of everyday job actually I find the most impressive and the most interesting to present to you today. Repository workflows and day-to-day jobs are basically around, first of all, advocacy, because if you want to establish a repository in an institution, you have to advocate for it, you have to talk about it, you have to know, and you have to have all the knowledge that I'm going to mention next. But then again, it comes first when establishing the new repository. Also training, whether it is other repository managers or whether it is researchers. Recruiting content, I will be saying something about that too, because I find it the most difficult part of managing a repository. I will say something about the depositing process, about the data curation, about managing users, and about managing collections. First of all, when speaking about the advocacy, I'm always, I don't know what's more important, increased visibility or long-term preservation. For example, both of these are very important, but I think when it comes to repositories and when it comes to all the issues it offers, I think that increased visibility is the main advantage of having the repository. Of course, long-term preservation and the archiving of the material is a very important part, but increased visibility without long-term preservation and long-term preservation without increased visibility is not a good repository. Also, when advocating, you can mention the compliance with open access mandates, because so many projects, I mean, almost every project today asks you or demands, maybe to be more precise, demands to have the outputs of your research in the open access in some of the repositories. And of course, statistics and case uses. Sometimes when we do the advocating, we take a picture of statistics, take a screenshot of statistics on a new repository where you have low statistics. And for example, after a month, after 6 months, after a year. So these screenshots are very important to show to the people who are just establishing their repository how important it is to have a repository. One thing that I would like to emphasize more, I found this slide from Milica's one of the previous presentations. You have the link here, that aggregators are your best allies. That is definitely the case regarding the repositories. You should register your repository for harvesting in those bases that have been mentioned here. You should optimize your repository for Google Scholar. Those things are very important. If you're not a technical person, as I am not, you should contact a person who is in charge for this technical support and negotiate to have these things done, because it is a very important issue that the things that are in your repository are visible to the community. When it comes to training, I have a specific experience, because I work in a support team regarding as I mentioned, I work as a support team for users for other repositories. So we used to create all kinds of user guides. We created, let me show you on a different slide. We created this sort of general guide that is online and is available to everybody. You have these links when you can search the things that you are looking for. But since these guidelines are really extensive, and sometimes you can find it difficult to find what you're looking for, although we try to make it as simple as possible, but for some specific processes, we used to make so-called small guide for a specific operation. Here I screenshotted a little guide for here. It is how do you map an item to a different collection. This is a small guide on 3 pages. And because you don't do the mapping every day, so if you don't use it for some time, you forget how to do it. So these small guides can always be at your reach, and it is easier to find how to use it. These screenshots we have here have proved to be very, very intuitive and very easy to use, because once you are used to work in your repository, when you see the screenshots, you automatically, connect it in your mind, and it's much easier to remember the process and to learn it. Also, we used to make a user guides in PDF and make it specific for each institution. We used to do that. We don't do it anymore. But those user guides were very interesting because the screenshots were from the specific repository. So visually, users could connect with the material, and it was easier to remember how to do certain processes. These videos and group works are also a very good way of training many people, because when you are, for example, on Zoom or Teams or whatever you're using, you can have many people there to listen, and then you can also record that sort of video and keep it for a future, make it available online and keep it for a future, questions or things like that. And that is also the thing that I mentioned on this next screenshot. Online videos. You can make a small online video on your own. For example, this is an example of how to import your references to your ORCID from a repository to your ORCID profile. And that is a small online video lasting for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. I don't remember, but it's short. And this group work is a video that lasts about an hour or more even. With researchers, you can work online, even though if you have them all at one space, because sometimes it is more comfortable for people to be online and to watch what you're doing. But sometimes it is better. It depends on a situation of what you're training about. Sometimes it is better to collect them all physically at one place and to speak about the topic that you feel that many researchers have an issue with, because when asking questions, they will and you will encourage them to ask, to see that other people have the same issues as they do, and you will encourage them to ask and to have more questions, and of course to feel more free to approach the repository, because that's what it's for. Here is the subject that I find the most difficult in managing the repository: recruiting the content. First of all, that is, I need to emphasize from my own experience, not as some sort of, I don't know, general example. I would like to, first of all, divide the content for the repository into digitized and non-digitized. When it comes to digitized content, first of all, of course, you contact the authors from one institution and ask them to have to deliver the papers to you, to send them to you by email or some shared folder on Google Disk. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, but usually, if the institution establishes the institutional repository, usually it goes well with the authors. You can also search the web with keywords for that institution and find the content for your repository. You can search the online catalogs and involve some other library to digitalize your the content that you are interested in and to send it to you by mails, and of course to contact people involved in publishing, editors, technical staff, and so on. Once you're finished with digitalized content, or you're never finished, of course, that is an ongoing process. But once that sort of job, decreases, you can turn to non-digitalized content. And I wanted to tell you something about my experience regarding non-digitalized content. This is an example when I have found that very important article regarding the history of the institute that I'm working for. And it speaks about very foundation of an institution and about the people that were involved in it. And historically, it is very important. So I found it in a catalog of one library, and I asked my colleagues to scan that document for me and to send it to me by mail. So they have, I don't know if this is scanning, I'm not sure. I'd rather say this is some sort of, you know, taking a picture by your phone, something like that. So when I received this document, I couldn't do anything with it. So I have decided to retype it because the content of that document was very important. I have decided to retype it and to make it a PDF. And for example, that is one issue with that non-digitalized material. You can get something like this and then you have to deal with it. Other part, when you simply scan in your scanner by yourself, you scan it in the way you want it, not like this. You will also have additional work in, you know, in cutting edges, making PDFs out of scans and stuff like that. So you have to have in mind that depositing non-digitalized documents is far more time-consuming than repositing digitalized documents. This is actually the thing that happened to me, being overwhelmed with material, because I have received at one point over 40 publications of 200 pages each, to scan them and to put them in the repository. So when I first saw that, I must say that my first impression was just like this on this picture. Oh my God, what am I going to do? When am I going to finish this? But then, and if you ever have that kind of situation, I would like you to make a plan of how many books can you scan in a certain time. Take, you know, measure your time, see, for example, for these, to scan all these books and to put them in the repository, it will take approximately 2 years. So have that in mind if this happens to you. At some point, all repository managers come to this situation that at that moment you have no material to download. In such situations that comes to all of us, I suggest that you go one step back and use that time to search the web for interesting documentation that could be interesting for your repository. Search online catalogs now that you have the time, or simply do the scanning of the material, or do something with important documents, something of this sort, retype it. That is a very important time for you not to have the material to download, because that is the time when you can settle. You can do some work that takes a little bit more time that you have been putting aside because, you know, you have a lot of material to do, and then you do it quickly. Now is the time to go back to that material that is as important as every other. Give it a little space, and in this situation, simply don't panic and have something, do some jobs that take more time, and then fulfill your time and the material for the repository will eventually come. It all comes because repository is a never-ending story. Yeah. When it comes to depositing, I'm sorry. I would also like to make a difference between digitized metadata and non-digitized metadata. Of course, you realize what I'm talking about when you, first of all, when you prepare the digitalized material, you have to prepare your PDFs. For example, if you have some book of proceedings and you need specific paper, you need to take it out to extract it from the proceeding book. And then I suggest using some of the free tools on the internet. I personally use this site and this free tool. I love PDF because I find it really amazing for everything that I do in the repositories. You can extract as many papers as you want at the time. I screenshot it here, you know, like separate papers from pages, I don't know, 16 to 49, and so on. And then you just split it and you have it downloaded on your computer as a separate PDFs. One thing that I always recommend to all the repository managers is to prepare some sort of document, whether it's in Word or TXT or whatever you're using, because when you prepare your title, authors, abstracts, keywords, projects, DOI number, ISSN and stuff like that, your depositing process will be more precise and I won't say quicker, I would rather say more quality. You gain more quality by preparing your metadata. Another issue that comes when digitalizing depositing non-digitized material is that when it's a simple scan, when you because still OCR is too expensive for many of us. I prepared here some of the tools you can use to simply screenshot your first page with the metadata, and these tools will extract the text right from the from that scanned document, and then it will be easier for you to prepare your metadata like this. When preparing not digitalized material, I think this preparation in some word or text is absolutely necessary, because text extended in this way will come in all kinds of shapes. You have to recheck it. You will have many spaces on the places where there shouldn't be. You will maybe have some typing errors. You have to put it on the paper and see what you got and double check everything, the names of the authors especially, and double check everything. And then when you're sure your data is correct, you can continue with depositing. Reviewing deposit and assure quality for me is also very important part of managing a repository, because if you only focus on depositing and not going back to see what you did, you can easily make a mistake, and of course that is not what we want. Data curation basically means that, let me go to another slide, it is easier when you look at it. Data curation actually means that you correct the data that is not good in your item. For example, I have screenshotted I'm so sorry for my coughing. I had the flu last week, so I'm still recovering. This is an example of not enough DC fields in one item. So you see this list here. This is I had to add these fields manually because the very interface was not set to have all these necessary fields. So I had to add them manually. This is also an example of how you normalize names in a repository, because probably when I was entering the names, I entered this Andrea Frank in two different ways, with an I and without an I. And so basically I would have to enter these items and to choose one of these options and to uniform them. This is also a screenshot of the collection, the name of collections. At the beginning, when we're just starting to develop the repository net in Serbia, eternal joke among us repository managers was that you have to have an OCD to be a repository manager. That was, of course, a joke, but I would like to say that you have to be very neat. You have to follow the uniformity. If you want to your repository to look as it should. So also here in the two repositories that I work in, I do all the jobs. I upload the papers and I approve them to the repository. But in some other repositories that I helped establish, researchers do the upload, and the repository managers just approve the admission of that item. So this is the screenshot of one such a case. The repository manager has an option to approve item, to reject it, to edit it, and to take it back to the researchers. So yes, it is also part of everyday work, our repository manager. Managing users can also be a great part of your job, everyday job, because there are three types of user. There are three things that you should think of when managing users. First of all, you will have the publications that will be open to be read publicly, open in open access, and that's nothing in particular you can do regarding that. But you will also have publicly non-available content that will be available only for the researchers from the institution that the repository belongs to. And then you have to be careful when giving the authorities to those people. This is, for example, how it looks in Rivec repository. By choosing this user, I will give them a right to submit to my repository. Managing collections. I will go back to the slide because, for example, this is one example of how communities looked in March 2024, and then the decision makers, and they decided to rearrange because they decided it is not maybe good to have the communities like that. So they gave me a list of communities, how they want them to look. So we made a new list. And for example, what is interesting here, they wanted it to be in this order, not in any other, or like here, like ABC. No, they wanted to put this in this specific order. Since that was not possible in the DSpace option that I am using, I remembered to use these numbers, first, second, third, and stuff like that. So I could arrange them in the manner that they wanted me to manage it. Of course, moving items from one collection to another is actually a job that you have to do manually. This specific repository has over 2,000 items. So you can imagine how big work was it to remove each item manually from one collection to another, and to keep everything in your head. Okay, this goes here, this goes there, da, 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 da. So this was really a huge job, but I'm glad it has been done the way that you know, they wanted it. They have been very happy at the end. Also, what is important, what I would like to emphasize, that you have the uniformity of the names of your collections. I have seen one. Okay, this is maybe a good example. You see, maybe I could have named the preceding book, then the year, then this and that. But this sort of uniformity is very important, because people will find it easier to use the things you put in your repository if you have that kind of uniformity. Okay, that's it from me. I think I said everything I wanted to say. If you want to see my presentation, you can approach it here through this application. It is, you can share it, you can use it. And if you find it useful, I will be more than happy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was excellent. Are there any questions to Ljiljana? And you can write your questions in the Q&A, or you can write them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll let you speak. And also, maybe if you as a repository manager doing something that Ljiljana hasn't mentioned in her example, maybe you can also share that either in the chat or raise your hand and add. Maybe while you are thinking about your questions, maybe then maybe we can have another presentation from Milica. But please don't forget that Lila is waiting for your questions, and we would also like to hear whether we haven't missed anything in this list of responsibilities. With you, Milica, thank you.
Yeah, so yes, I want to say that when I first started training repository managers, I would explain to them, so you know, your researchers would submit content into the repository, and you will just check this and approve it, and that's all. But this is how it doesn't work like this in practice. So what Lila explained is actually a kind of a full scope of what we are doing, especially at institutions where we are single librarians. And there are some details, for example, like collection management, etc., that you really need to plan well, which is not always possible. So my presentation is actually connected to what Ljiljana has explained, and I will make references to her presentations on several occasions, and I will share a link to my presentation later so you can reuse it if you want. How to engage repository users. So if you have a repository, it can be perfect. It can be the best of the repositories, but if it's not used, it will be very difficult to maintain it, and it will be very difficult to persuade institutional decision makers to keep funding it or to keep, I don't know, maintaining it and providing support for it. So that's why it's very important for you as a repository manager to be able to show that it's actually used, and before that to be able to engage users around it and to actually make them use it. When a repository appears, it's usually quite well visible on the internet, but there are some things that can be done, and Ljiljana has already mentioned this, and Iryna will share a resource how to register it with aggregators. But then you need to also, it's not enough. You need to draw attention of the users that it actually exists. So first of all, I wanted to draw your attention to different types of users. So we usually focus on researchers who provide content, but they are not the only users. And actually, they are in most cases, readers are the users that we don't really know about the scope of this group of users, but they are actually the largest group of users. And they don't only include other researchers and researchers from your institution, because researchers usually also, they read content. They just not only deposit content in the repository, but they read the content from the repository and use it in their research. Readers include also students and citizens, journalists, teachers, etc. Teachers, for example, in some cases, in my repository at the Institute of Technical Sciences and the Serbian Academy of Sciences and Arts, we can say that teachers are an important group of users. So you should also think about them. You should be aware that there are such users. Also, other librarians, for example, librarians trying to help researchers find content. So they usually visit repositories and they are aware of this resource. And also institutional leaders are important repository users. And I will show how they may not be aware of this, but you should draw their attention to this. We are using different strategies for different users, and for researchers, it's very important. Visibility is very important. So if you have a policy, if you have a mandate, this is a good way to start with, but this is not the best of ways, because they will, if there is a mandate, they will deposit what they have to deposit. They won't be motivated to deposit the other things. And we actually, in the long term, we want to encourage them to develop genuine motivation to use the repository. And it's much better if you have this genuine motivation to use it. In order to do this, you need to explain to them that repository is visible, and you need to explain what repository does to that, does for them and for their content. So here I won't be showing any images. You can click those links and you can see the examples. So I provided one item from a repository, and on the other links you can see how this specific item is visible in other aggregators, in search engines. And that's what we do during training, as Ljiljana has mentioned. So we show items from the repository, and we show that they're actually visible elsewhere. And we also, if metrics are available in those other venues, we also show metrics, and Iryna will talk more about metrics. Also, we work with projects. So now, for example, there are projects that have to ensure that their publications are deposited, because they have this as a funding requirement, and they also have to deposit their data, etc. And we work with them. So when they start the project, we approach them and we offer our support, and then they usually appreciate this, and then there is an example. You will see how we showcased their projects in the repository. We create a specific community collection, and then organize all the content from their project in the repository. And this is usually a URL that they can use, put it on another website, put in the reports, etc. So it's a kind of a very useful thing that you can do for them. Also, we help researchers populate their ORCID profiles with trackers from the repository. This is very important, especially in the humanities, where there are many print-only publications that are scanned or just are deposited, PDFs are deposited in the repository, and this content is nowhere else to be found, only in the repository. So they have the metadata that can be reused, that they can use Zotero or other ways to import this metadata into their ORCID profiles. And this is something that researchers really appreciate. And I provide here 2 examples that you can check where researchers, among other things, they imported a significant number of records into their profiles from repositories. Also, about advocacy that Ljiljana mentioned, one of the strategies is we actually find, or actually we create champions. So these can be early career researchers. They're the most likely group of researchers to be champions, but also there are some senior researchers that really value repositories, that want their work to be showcased there. And then when we establish such examples, we work with them to help them make this content available. And then we show these examples in our presentations. And it's usually a very good advertisement for the repository, because there are other researchers who want to do the same. And also we use free widgets to show, for example, altmetrics and dimensions they offer, and also Scopus. They offer free widgets that you can integrate in your repository. It requires technical skills, but these can be integrated so that you can show metrics. And this is something that researchers like. As for readers, it's very important to make sure that you have unique content in your repository. So that's where you have to go beyond mandates, because mandates, this is, if there is an open access mandate, that these are usually journal articles, etc., that are deposited, and they can be found in other sources. So, but if you have digitized content, historical volumes of a journal, or some monographs, etc., scanned, that can be made available, posters, images, etc., this creates a unique content that that can't be found anywhere else, and this is what attracts readers. This might not be a priority for researchers, but it is usually a priority for readers. Also, this content diversity matters. So readers appreciate this, and they want to find different types of resources in the repository. It's very important also to organize collections in a logical way. Although you should know that most visitors come via search engines, and they don't, sometimes they skip the step, they skip the collections. But if you expect them to come to your homepage, then it's good to have collections organized in a logical way. And it's also a very good strategy to persuade libraries to reference repositories in their reference pages, because your readers might be visiting those pages, and this is important to do. Also, it's important to try to reach out to your target readers. So, for example, I provide here an example of reaching out to Wikipedians. I'm a member of the local wiki community, and you will find my presentation how I try to encourage them. Wikipedia is a good way to engage. So, for example, if you encourage people to add references to articles from your repository there, this will actually attract readers. So there are complex strategies. So if you're talking to readers, then you have to use also the indirect ways. So you are not actually talking directly to them, but you are making information about your repository available in other sources that they are using. As for institutional leaders, they usually don't understand the meaning of the importance of the repository in the same way as researchers do. And it's very important to explain to them that the repository solves many problems for them. So, for example, if they have a policy that they have to meet the requirements of this policy, you can explain to them that the repository is the place that will enable policy compliance, and this is the place where they can track whether policies, whether they are aligned with the policy. Also, if they want to track research efficiency, if they want to track the number of publications a year, etc., reporting, etc., this is where a repository can help them. And we repository managers usually can support them in generating those reports, either by doing this for them or actually enabling export options so that they can export data and create those reports. Also, it's very important to explain to them that, for example, they can encourage researchers to use the repository by requiring them to provide links to the repository in their CVs, in their reports, etc. So this means that if they are to provide link, they need to deposit content in the repository first. And also they can make a decision that repository is used as the main source of evidence in promotion and accreditation procedures. So this will also push researchers to deposit, but at the same time, this will make it easier for institutional leaders to, this will make it easier for them to manage their administration procedures, because they would be able to rely on the repository as a source of information. And also what Lilja has showed with digitization, repositories can showcase the history of the institutions, and this is something that institutional leaders usually take care about. So that's all from me. It got stuck, but Iryna will proceed from this point on.
Thanks a lot. Maybe before that, we have one question from Mariana. I can't find the option to map works in my repository. Maybe if Lilja or Milica use this functionality, works.
I can see that question.
In Q&A, if you click Q&A.
So in this space, you have, I'm afraid that Mariana's question is too specific and we will answer it after the webinar. But in this space, you usually have this option, mapping options. And this is done by going to the collection, the destination collection. So if you want to map something into a particular collection, you go to that collection, and then under edit option, there is map items. And then you search, search is far from perfect. You search for the item that you want to map, you check it and click map, and it's mapped.
I will send you my, Mariana, I will send you my mini guide, user guide, so you can do it yourself. I saw a very interesting question from Biljana here. It is in Serbian, so maybe some people didn't understand it. Biljana asked, how do I edit metadata? Because she saw my slide from the ESOP site, and she said, this is not Elena. This question is very important for me, because I would like to, this is a showcase of good IT support, which we have from Computer Center in Belgrade, and okay, not so good support, IT support, which I have in ESOP repositories. IT support is very, very, very important. Computer Center in Belgrade has established some additional applications that make it easier for you to make changes in your repositories, in metadata and stuff like that. In the basic, I can show you now, in the basic this space, you don't have those options. Oh my God. E-prints. So if you don't have that sort of support that we have from a Computer Center in Belgrade, you simply have to do it all manually. So I will show you how I change metadata in this space when you don't have I don't know, some technical solutions that are easy to use. You simply change it like this. You enter the item. You go here. Oh, I'm not logged in. And then you simply manually add fields. You see here? You add it, you have to know the name of the easy, I don't know, for example, footer. Then you add it and you add it manually, and then you save it and then you continue. We have something similar in our DSpaces, but some additional improvements that have been made by Computer Center Belgrade are actually so valuable for us that we got used to them, and that we think that all these space repositories have it. But no, that's not the case. So that's, Biljana, why you were probably confused how I change metadata.
So in order not to go into too much detail, I will
Yes.
share a we have a video recording of these additional tools, so I will share a link.
Thank you. Great.
Thanks a lot. And there is another question from Stephen. How would one maneuver copyright issues in repository creation and management? You're muted, Lila.
I muted myself because I coughed too much. You have option in a repository where you can put the license, the rights. You have that this space field for so when you enter there. Okay, maybe to shorten the story, this space has predicted all license issues, all sorts of licenses. So you have a special field when entering metadata where you can enter whether it's open or restricted, or you can enter the license and so on and so on.
Maybe on the higher level, you can only make publicly available content where a copyright holder allows it, or if your open access policy gives you additional rights. For example, if you have rights retention clause in your policy saying that you require researchers make the also accepted manuscripts openly available immediately or 6 months after publications, then such policy clause gives you permission to make content available. If you don't have permission from copyright holder, if a journal by default doesn't allow making also accepted manuscripts available after some embargo periods, then you can't make that content open access, unfortunately.
But it's good once you have it in a repository. If that license changes, you can always change it later on, or add another version that is open.
Mm-hmm. I also said that I will talk a little bit about types of statistics that repository managers collect. And this is not really my document. It's a discussion that happened at the Space Community Outreach team in February. So repository managers were asked to write what kind of statistics they are collecting now, views and downloads for items and collections, primary collect and share as a way to strengthen relations with our depositors. And then a repository sends a spreadsheet every month, and they also keep track of growth, both in item numbers and in number of collections. For download statistics, for items, collections, communities, entire repository, collected through DSpace statistics feature and additional Admire package. So this is how this Admire package looks like, where top publications are featured, and there are some numbers and also for countries. Then number of items added over a particular period of time, for example, last year. Overall number of items in collection, number of submitters. If content is not openly available, but if there is a request button to request access, then this kind of statistics is also collected, number of requests a copy. Then repository managers also track time between initial submission and actual dissemination or archiving. Item downloads, I already showed you that package. Then some repositories collect internal statistics monthly, new users registered, new deposits, deposit made, and also external statistics on demand. And in DSpace 7, you have backed-in stats, total bitstream downloads by month, top 10 downloads in collection community. And also number of titles, number of authors in a collection, and some specific statistics that is collected in the UK using this IRIS UK and US, IRIS UK and IRIS US counter statistics, which is an effort to harmonize statistics across repositories. Then for annual reports, some repositories collect item downloads, and they also feature most popular item per year. Some count manually number of communities and collections, and then some track specific type of content, for example, number of articles, number of presentations, number of theses and dissertations, because in some countries it's required for consortia reporting. If you go to DSpace documentation, I opened DSpace 8 because it's the newest, but I don't think anything in this DSpace 8 that I'll be showing doesn't exist in other versions of DSpace. So DSpace is equipped with Solr-based infrastructure to log and display page views and 5 downloads. And then user statistics can be retrieved from individual item collection and community pages. And you can see total page visits all time, total visits per month, file downloads all time, top country views all time, top city views all time, file downloads, and also some system statistics, number of items archived, number of bitstream views, number of item page views, number of collection page views, community page views, user logins, searches performed, license rejections, and OEI requests. Speaking about OEI requests, last time we talked about importance of OAPMH in increasing visibility, quality, and interconnection of repositories. And we started preparing a document with some steps how repositories could check whether their OAPMH is configured properly. If you're using DSpace, where you can see more information about that. And also what issues might emerge and what solutions could be. And for some cases, we don't have solutions. For some cases, we have solution. And I'll share this document link with you as well. And if you're interested in improving your OAPMH in the repository, just let me know and we'll work with you, because now we have two pilot programs in our partner countries in Armenia and in Uganda, where we're specifically looking at that together with repository managers. Person is asking about open metrics, except number of views and downloads. I think I showed everything that could be shown with DSpace, but if Lila and Milica could add something.
This was the question before you started, so I presume that
I
maybe
provided some links in the answer, because you can use free altmetric widgets, and 3 dimensions widgets. They are not too difficult to implement if you have IT support, and they show those citations or mention information in your repository. This looks really nice and researchers love it. No matter how those metrics can be inaccurate, researchers just love it.
Thanks a lot for joining today. Thank you so much, Lilia and Milica, for your presentations. I hope it was as useful for everyone as it was useful for me. On the next steps, we briefly discussed that we would like to create a resource with advocacy messages, why repositories are important, a resource that you can show to your IT departments who might be hesitant to support you well, or maybe a resource that you can show to your management to explain the benefits and why repositories should be supported in your institution. So that's something that we'll follow up on. Probably when we have a resource, we'll schedule a meeting where we discuss with you and maybe ask you to add your arguments. We will also prepare some guidelines on the use of persistent identifiers in repositories, and also how repositories could help populate ORCID profiles of researchers. And we'll be organizing a dedicated webinar on persistent identifiers. If you have any other requests or issues with your repository operations, please write in the chat and we'll try to organize other webinars on this topic. And you will receive an email from me with slides and recording of today's event. And we'll also include links to resources mentioned here that were not mentioned in the slides in that webinar resource that we'll create. Thank you once again and have a very good day.
Big thank you from me also. Have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.